Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here's another exciting edition of How Do I Do This Anyways? Block number 7, lovingly referred to as the Loft block. You can spend some time cranking on this thing, trying to get an extrusion that'll actually make this shape and all this stuff, or trying to build it with shapes. I'm going to show you how to cut it out, because what we need to do is we need to make a cut pattern that will actually go from one sketch on one side of the object to another sketch on the other side of the object. So that's what we're going to do in Inventor. Let's begin. Again, I've already got my dimensions. Wait a minute, I thought I did. We're going to go ahead and start a 2D sketch. Double check my dimensions. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 by 4 by 5. Cool. So let's see here. Cool. And now extrude that to a height of 5. And then we got our primitive block. I like it. Now, let's go ahead and start the interesting part. You see how this bottom of it occurs in the midplane? I'm going to go ahead and create a midplane just so that way I have some geometry to share across that back and that front. Because whenever you can create a single piece of geometry and then measure and reference it, it's better than having multiple pieces. Like for me to measure this distance to this edge and this distance to this edge, it's better for me to just go ahead and put a piece of geometry like a work plane in here and then attach both those points to that single work plane. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead, come up here to my plane tool, and I'm going to put a mid plane between two planes again. I'm going to click the left side. I'm going to click the right side. And now, voila, I have my mid plane here. Now this is an imaginary work plane. It'll be useful later on. I'm going to go ahead and start my front sketch. And I'm also going to not like the number of dashes here. So I've got my grid lines left on because so many people love them. I'm going to reduce my number of grid lines because that's too many grid lines for me. I'm going to come in here into my document settings, and I'm going to come into my sketch part and this snap spacing. Let's see here. That should be, I'm going to go with 0.25 inches. Why? Do you see how it changed? That's much better. In fact, I want even fewer. I want to have ½ inch. And you can change it from your X and Y so that way you can have different orientations or different increments in the Y direction as the X direction. I don't need that many grid lines here. In fact, they cluttered the document. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get to it. I need to make this triangle here on the front. Okay, I'm going to make its sister on the back, but I'm going to do the front part first. That's 1 over along the top, 1 over along the top, and then 1 over in the middle from the bottom. Let's go ahead, and I'm just going to use my point tool to actually place those points. Now, it's tempting to try and use the number coordinates up here to try and line it up. And I am going to allow it to make that constraint along the top, but I do not want it to create my constraint for its actual placement. Now, a trick you can use is to use the midpoint tool, how it flashes green on the midpoint and then just dragging it up, or project that geometry you made. There it is. So, coming back to my point. Get back to a front view. I'm just going to drop this point right there where it wants to snap, and how it turned green. That means it's got that nice concentric constraint there. Coincidence constraint. I'm going to dimension this on over to be 1 inch from the top I'm going to do the same thing over here. Just 1 inch from the top. Nice and easy. And now I want to dimension from the bottom here to that point. Drag it off to the side so it's not on your document. 1 inch. Now, I need to use my line tool in order to connect dots. You want to let it make sure that it snaps and turns green there to make that coincidence constraint on top of your dots. Another annoying thing is that when you do that second coincidence constraint, it's going to think you're done with that line tool and it's going to want to let you drop it. Don't do that. All right, so now, since I have projected that top geometry, I should be able to extrude that edge or that edge. So that's a quick double check to make sure your shape is actually closed, because you need to be able to have a closed shape for the Loft tool to work. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the back side. Well, first off, I'm going to finish that sketch. I need to create another sketch on the back side though. Be careful to hover on the back side. All right, now I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to take and drop my points here, and then I'm going to dimension them to where I really actually want them to be in a minute. I need to make sure my geometry is actually projected into this sketch and get my point tool in there. All right, so now using my dimension tool, this is supposed to be 3. This is supposed to be 3. And this is supposed to be 3. Parametrically modeling it, that would be a little bit less numbers to type in, but whatever. We're going to do it this way. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect my dots using my line tool again. All right, now I'm going to double check using my extrude tool to make sure that I can actually extrude those shapes. I don't want to extrude those shapes because if I extrude them, let me just go ahead and try that for a minute. Wrong thing. If I click those things and extrude them, and I cut that through, that's not going to look right. And if I do the same thing from that side, it's not going to look right. What I need to do is I need to cut from this sketch that I've got here over to that sketch that I've got there. And that is what our Loft tool does. Okay, so we're going to use that Loft tool. I need to finish up that back sketch because I'm done with it. And now I need to come up here to this Loft tool. Your Loft tool can either be a joining where it creates new bodies, or it can be a cut where it cuts away bodies. We're going to do that. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select the sketch, and it selected this area of the sketch. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the same thing with this sketch. You see how it previewed it? Does that look right? Looks right to me. Now we're doing the very basic, easy one, and it does that. All right, so we can go ahead and turn off this work plane. Visibility off. And there, we have a loft block. So hopefully you guys found this video helpful. And if you have any questions, of course, let me know. Take care.